Chemistry is about how things are made up of the individual atoms and molecules. It's really getting to the heart of what makes up everything.
So origins, basically. Where do we come from? What is the universe made out of? And yet within an origins topic, we have multiple choices. We can say that everything in the universe is the result of random chance design of millions of mutations, that we are mere accidents, that we are animals, the result of evolution. Or we can say, well, there is a designer and everything appears to be designed, and then we have to answer that question. Who's the designer?
Well, that's the thing, that the evidence in living things shows stupendous design right down to the individual cell and the machines. But I want to talk more about sort of the designs that we can see. But even those are pretty amazing. And we know how amazing they are when humans are trying to copy what they do and learning things from what's in nature, things they never would have thought of. So if the human designs show at least human intelligence, what about the designs they're copying from? What does it show about the intelligence of the one who made the original they're copying from?
Wow. Okay. And doesn't this point us to Romans 1?
Oh, very much so.
Okay.
Which says, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even as eternal power and Godhead, so they are without excuse. So the atheists have no excuse, according to the Apostle Paul, because the evidence is so plain from what's been made.
All we have to do is look around and we see his power and his Godhead, and everything in the natural world, it points back to him. Yet, even atheists, just as that passage says, will admit that things look designed. Tell me what Richard Dawkins
Well, Richard Dawkins, who's known as the world's chief apostle of atheopathy, you might say, a staunch atheist who uses evolution to push his atheistic faith. It's a blind faith, but he says biology is a study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. I think the appearance is because that's the reality. They really were designed for a purpose, which of course he doesn't believe, but that's what it certainly looks like. And therefore, why not, as a scientist, think, well, that's because they really have a designer.
Everything appears designed, but it can't be, because if there's a designer, and that designer is the God of the Bible, then we're accountable to him.
And Dawkins and co. don't want to be accountable to anyone. That's the basic thing. It's a spiritual battle, ultimately.
All right, well, relate that to human design. Let's look at, say, a jet.
Okay, let's see a jet. I mean, even if we haven't seen it being made in the factory, I've actually been to the Boeing factory, the museum in Seattle, but the point is, even without that, we know it's designed because we see certain things. Like, for instance, it has loads of correct components.
Okay.
Okay, the point is, the plane is made up totally of non-flying parts. I mean, the wing doesn't fly, the cockpit doesn't fly, the engine doesn't fly. So how does it become a flying machine? How do I get back to Australia? I mean, some of your politicians say I should use high-speed rail, I guess, but honestly, though, the point is they have to be organised correctly. So correct organisation and correct components, and organisation, we know from experience, requires an organizer.
Okay.
See, what's the alternative? If we go back to evolutionary ideas, evolution can be summarized by matter plus time plus energy produces organization.
Okay.
So let's do an experiment with a tornado in a junkyard. The junkyard provides the matter. Junkyard of aeroplane parts provides the matter. The tornado provides the energy. You can have as many millions of years as you want, and supposedly that's going to form a jet plane.
Okay. That doesn't...
Yeah, but supposing I told you this picture really is the opposite. It's the tornado hitting the aeroplane and turning it into a junkyard.
Well, that makes sense.
But you know why it makes sense? The reason is there are many more ways of being a junkyard than being an aeroplane. Simple as that.
Okay. All right. So one logically makes sense. In fact, we've seen organized components being torn up by a tornado.
Right.
But we could test and observe thousands of tornadoes going through junkyards.
Yeah.
And I think we would all laugh at the idea that even after thousands of tries, it would ever produce anything organized, complex, functioning.
Yeah, because again, many more ways of being a junkyard. I mean, parents know this because, I mean, do you have to tell your kids to mess up their rooms? And again, it's because there are many more ways of being messy than being tidy. So if you want tidiness, you have to have organization. Raw energy of your kids is going to produce a mess because there's just many more ways of becoming a mess. That's basically what it is.
Okay, but we've looked at human design and how unlikely it is that that would ever happen by chance. What about biology?
Well, the thing is, the unique thing about biology is that living things, by definition, can make copies of themselves. Reproduction, you see. A jumbo jet doesn't have a baby jet. Okay, it's not self-copying. A Boeing factory makes jumbo jets, but doesn't make a new Boeing factory. You see, it's not self-copying, but all living things make copies of themselves. Your children are sort of copies of you, and your body is made up of trillions of cells which are constantly copying themselves. That's how your body grows, how it repairs injury, because you've got these trillions of self-copying cells.
Okay.
That's a unique thing about life, which is why even the simplest living thing is far more complex than anything we can make.
Wow. Okay, we want to look at several specific examples, but before we do that, I would love to go out to people on the street where we ask them the question, what in nature inspires designers and engineers the most? We wanted to get their perspective. Here's what they said.
The tree is actually an engineering marvel, and I happen to be something of an engineer. I'm a safety engineer, but a tree is a magnificent study in engineering.
Me and this fellow over there saw a beautiful bird this morning, a beautiful red bird. I mean, how can that not inspire somebody? He was on a bull today. That inspired us.
Yeah,
so
it did.
Like the dragonfly. You've seen some of the way some of our helicopters are designed. You know, it's like every single thing. You know, nature's the ultimate inspiration, you know, because this is like God made the earth, but man made the world.
Birds with airplanes and stuff like that. Everything, all of it, colors, patterns, everything.
I know for a fact that engineers are inspired by like the Fibonacci sequence and like leaves and neurons and things like that. They all seem to like branch out into a unique form, and like so many different parts of nature do that.
Looking at the shapes or like the arrangements of flowers and stuff or plants, you know, it looks cool.
Almost anything, just because if you don't know what it is, we're just a creature that wants to figure it out. So I think anything has a potential to inspire.
Those were some pretty good responses.
They were. I was impressed by them, actually, and they're all correct, actually. Some of them I've actually written about myself in my book called By Design. I've written about some of those things, but they're some good answers there. Very impressive.